Hey guys, today we're going to be taking our next notes on our factoring foldable. So if you would, please get that out of your interactive notebook right now. It's on page 36, I think. We have already filled in the factor out of the GCF page, so if you haven't gotten a hold of that, come see me after class and we'll get you the video to put that part together. Today you're going to have to turn your notebook sideways because we're getting ready to do our second flap. Okay. Today we're going to be factoring trinomials. So remember, a trinomial has three terms, thus the word tri. Alright, so go ahead and write factoring trinomial where a equals 1. I'll explain what that means in just a second, but go ahead and write that on the outside flap. Pause the video if you need to in order to catch up. Alright? Okay. Go ahead and open up that flap, and on the top of the flap I need you to cut out the information that I gave you guys in class today. It looks like this. You're going to have to trim it up so that it will fit up here, but those are our steps. So take a second, pause the video, trim that up, and tape it to the top of the flap, please. Great. Now that you have been able to attach your steps, I'd like you to grab a pencil, marker, highlighter, whatever you got, and we're going to run through some of the most important parts. Alright, first off, whenever you're factoring, you want to make sure that you factored out a GCF, if you can. That's what we learned earlier. It's if you have a common term that goes into every term in your trinomial. Okay? Alright, so in a trinomial, you have three terms. The first term usually has x squared or p squared or something squared. The middle term usually has an x on it, or a p or a b, whatever you're studying. And the last term is your constant. Well, we're factoring trinomials today where the first term has a leading coefficient of just 1. So meaning we're looking at trinomials that start with just x squared or p squared or s squared. Okay, we'll get into some of the tougher trinomials probably later this week. Alright, so first thing that we're going to do in order to factor these trinomials is go back to our box method. It's something that we're familiar with and we're going to keep going with it. Okay, so we're going to create our box, which is down here at the bottom, and fill in the first and the third terms. I'll show you what that looks like in just a second, but our first term here is x squared, our last term is 7. So when you're ready, you can go ahead and put those in your box. Alright, next we're going to list the factors of the last term. In our case, it's the number 7, so that's pretty easy because it's prime. Alright, but you have to be careful that you list both the positives and the negatives that create that number. Then, of our list, we're going to identify the two factors that multiply to be the last term and add to be this term in the middle here. So in our case, our middle term is -8. We are just talking about the coefficient here, not the entire term. Alright, finally, we're going to list our working factors in those empty boxes that we've been leaving empty. And then we're going to take the GCF out of every column and every row. Alright, so let's take a look at what that looks like here. We have an example. If you would, make sure that you write this down. Our example is to factor x squared minus 8x plus 7. So the first thing that we're supposed to do is create our box, which I've already done, and fill in the first term, which in our case is x squared, and the last term, which is 7. Alright, so I pulled those straight out of the trinomial. Next, we're going to list the factors of the last term. So our factors of 7 are 7 times 1 equals 7. It's a prime number, that's all we've got. But don't forget, two negatives also equal a positive. So -7 times -1 also equals 7. I've got to list both of those. Alright, now, what we are looking for are two factors that multiply to be the last term, so we took care of that with our list, but they also have to add to be the middle term. So if I were to take a look at this, I would have 7 plus 1 equal to 8. That's not the middle term that we're looking for. We're looking for negative 8. So, just a hint, if you're looking for a negative middle term, your factors are probably going to have at least one negative in it. And in this case, negative 7 plus negative 1 is the negative 8 that we're looking for. So the factors that work for us are the negative 7 and the negative 1. So let me just circle those real quick. And if you would, make sure you're taking these notes as well. All right, finally, we're going to be able to plug those working numbers into our box. So it doesn't matter what order you put them in. I just happen to put negative 1x in the top and negative 7x in the bottom. Remember that our middle terms have to have an x on them to match the middle term of our trinomial. So I took my working numbers, I put them in their respective boxes, and tacked an x onto the end of both of them. Now all I've got to do is pull the GCF out of every column and every row. So if we take a look at the first column, I have x squared minus 7x. The GCF of those two terms is just an x. If I look at this column here, I have negative 1x and positive 7. The only thing that I can really take out of that is a negative 1. Going over to my first row, I have x squared and negative 1x. The only thing I can take out of that is an x. And just to check it, x times x does equal x squared, and negative 1 times x does equal negative 1x. So far our factors look good. All right, last factor here, I have negative 7x and positive 7. If I were to take a negative 7 out of that negative 7 times x still creates negative 7x, and the negative 7 times the negative 1 creates the positive 7 that we're looking for. If you want to check it, you can add up those middle terms. They're going to equal negative 8 because that's what we created. Remember, our factors are the terms that are outside of our rectangle. Therefore, our two factors are x minus 7 that came from this side and x minus 1 that came from this side. That's all it takes. We've got some practice problems coming up, so stay tuned, and thank you very much.